The Raiders were real busy on day one of the legal negotiation period, not so much on day two. And today, well, the new league year opens up. There's a lot to get to on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Wednesday, March 13th, 2024.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of you, Raider Nation. It is awesome the support that we're getting for the show on YouTube, and of course, because of my man Ari. Ari does a great job, takes a lot of pride in his work. So we're up on YouTube. We sound good on YouTube, and we look good on YouTube. That's all because of my man Ari. It has nothing to do with me. So you can check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And you know we got that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. A lot of feedback we've been getting on the text line and the phone line, so we'll get to as many of those calls and texts as possible. Coming up in segment number 3, Christian Wilkins, Gardner Minshew, what the Raiders could be doing moving forward, all that in segment number 3. Speaking of Christian Wilkins, in segment number 2, I had an opportunity to catch up with my guy, Chris Perkins. C-Perk is what I like to call him. He's from the Sun Sentinel. He covers the Miami Dolphins like a glove. He joined me on my radio show on Tuesday to talk all things Christian Wilkins, what he brings to the table, what big of a loss, how big of a loss that was for the Miami Dolphins defense, and what it will look like. Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, how much better can the Condor be? All that's coming up in segment number 2. Great conversation with C. Perk from the Sun Sentinel, all things Christian Wilkins. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, as I always do, and we'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the news and notes. And the Raiders didn't make any additions on Tuesday, but they did suffer some subtractions. They had some of their free agents that they have, and they had a handful of free agents, 17 or 18 guys of their own that were going to be unrestricted free agents, and they lost a couple of them on Tuesday. One, Amik Robertson. He agreed to a deal with the Lions on a 2-year, $9.25 million deal. It's worth up to $10.75 million in incentives. He played in 52 games with 21 starts with the Raiders. He could play the slot. He could play the outside. He's a versatile guy going to the Detroit Lions, of course, in 2023 for the Raiders. Played in 17 games, had 47 tackles, 2 INTs, 6 passes defense, and a sack. He proved to be a playmaker, but I remember talking to him in the locker room following that Week 18 game, and he was talking about being an unrestricted free agent, and, you know, he didn't know what was going to happen. And I asked him, and he didn't say that I want to be back. It looked like he wanted to go and get a payday, and a payday is what he got, $9.25 million deal, 2 years, up to $10.75. That's a big deal for Amik Robertson, who made about 400-something thousand last season for the Silver and Black. So big ups to him. I did want to tell you a little bit of background on Amik Robertson, and I always knew that he dealt with a lot of adversity coming up through as he was growing up and going to high school and college and on his journey to the NFL. I always knew that there was a bunch of adversity, but I never did enough deep diving to actually find out everything that he had gone through. But a guy that covers the Detroit Lions, he's on Twitter at footballguy_Al. He did a little bit of deep diving, put it out on Twitter, and I thought it was worth passing along just to let you know the adversity that Amik Robertson went through in his life on his journey to the NFL. How about this? Father was in prison when he was born and remained out of his life until he was age 11. His mother actually gave birth to him at age 15, raised him and his siblings, and Meek at one point had to live with his uncle in Houston at one stage in his life. He also, Amik Robertson, became a father at age 15. His son's name is Aiden. He suffered a knee injury in summer before high school senior season, and then a groin injury prevented him from working out in the NFL scouting combine. And remember, all this, and on top of that, being 5'8" and 187 pounds and trying to be an outside cornerback. So at footballguy_Al put that out on Twitter on Tuesday, and I thought it was worth passing along. Again, I knew he had gone through some adversity, but shame on me, I didn't do the deep dive in research to find out exactly what it was, and all the opportunities that I had to talk with Amik. Unfortunately, I missed out on that opportunity to just ask him how the adversity that he went through and dealt with in his life, everything I just rolled out, how that helped shape him into the person he is today. But big ups to Amik Robertson. He's on his way to the Detroit Lions. That'll become official today. 2-year deal, again, worth up to $10.75 million with incentives with the Detroit Lions. Also, later on Tuesday, the Raiders lost Austin Hooper as he agreed to a deal with the Patriots. The tight end gets a 1-year deal worth up to $4.25 million, reunites with Patriots offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, who was with him when he was in Cleveland. As far as on the field, Austin Hooper didn't do a whole lot for the Raiders in 2023, 25 catches, 234 yards, 12 first downs, no touchdowns. But what he did do, and this is from Michael Mayer himself, he helped him a lot. He helped tight end Michael Mayer a lot get acclimated to the NFL. Now Mayer, who had a pretty good rookie year, you saw him start to come on strong towards the end of the season, but ended up getting injured and missed the last handful of games. Mayer needs to come back healthy, really step up, and show why the Raiders traded up to go get him. So Austin Hooper, the wily veteran, he is no longer going to be a member of the Silver and Black. He's on his way to New England to be with the Patriots. Also, according to Diana Rossini from The Athletic, she put out that today, actually she put this out on Tuesday, the Raiders are expected to cut Jimmy G. There are a few teams interested. Cutting Garoppolo straight up, they'll free up about $11.269 million in immediate cap space when they cut him sometime today as the new league year opens up. They could split it up between 2 years if they wanted to. His dead cap hit, I don't think that they're going to do it. They're just going to eat it. So they're going to also, like I said, eat some of that dead cap money, but they'll also free up that 11.269, and they sit around $20 million in salary cap space right now. Also, they're expected to cut quarterback Brian Hoyer today and defensive tackle Jerry Tillery as well. Between those three moves, it saves about $13.6 million, so they should be just around $33 million, $34 million in available salary cap space once they do make those transactions and make them official like a referee's whistle. Of course, the signing of Christian Wilkins and the signing of Gardner Minshew will also become official sometime today when the new league year opens up at 1 p.m. Pacific time. If you're keeping track of the in-house free agents that the Raiders still have, defensive tackle John Jenkins, defensive tackle Adam Butler, guard Greg Van Roten, fullback Jakob Johnson, cornerback Tyler Hall, wide receiver DeAndre Carter, center Hronis Grasu, who just recently got married to Sabrina Ionescu, linebacker Curtis Bolton, offensive tackle Brandon Parker, tight end Jesper Horsted, running back Brandon Bolden, and running back Austin Walter. As far as guys that I think that they probably will look at to bring back, rotational pieces like a John Jenkins and an Adam Butler. Those guys make sense. Again, they're not guys that are high-priced guys, but they're guys that did fill a nice role last season. I could see guard Greg Van Roten being brought back as well. Brandon Parker might come back again as a depth piece. Again, not guys that they have to have, but guys I could see them being interested in. Even DeAndre Carter, the wide receiver, for special teams reasons, and also he did some good things as a wide receiver as well. I could see them bringing him back. Maybe cornerback Tyler Hall as well. So there's some guys on there that I'm sure they'll be interested in, but they're not high dollar guys, so it's not like it's really going to be hard to get them under the salary cap if they need to do that. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, kind of news and notes of the day. Coming up in segment number 2, my guy Chris Perkins from the Sun Sentinel. He joined my radio show on Tuesday. We talked all things Christian Wilkins, really good deep dive into who the Raiders are getting in Christian Wilkins. You'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, which is BetterHelp. And a lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time, right? We're always looking for more time. How can we squeeze more activities in the time that we're given? The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing in your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. That's where a lot of us get tripped up. Well, therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to do a deep dive into Christian Wilkins, the first guy that the Raiders came to agreement with on Monday when the legal negotiation period opened up. And since the Raiders weren't active on Tuesday as far as bringing any other guys in, didn't have any reason to break anybody else down. We talked about Christian Wilkins. We talked about Gardner Minshew. Well, I had a really good conversation with my guy, Chris Perkins from the Sun Sentinel, covers the Dolphins like a glove, has been covering the Dolphins for a long time, and he tells it like it is. And that's why I go to him. So he was on my radio show on Tuesday to talk all things Christian Wilkins, and we started off the conversation just talking about how big of a loss Wilkins is to the Miami Dolphins defense.
Oh, Q, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's a big loss for the Dolphins because Christian Wilkins was not only the heart and soul of that defense, he was an emotional leader, and he was the dude who walked the walk. You know, with that defense, a lot of those dudes are nice guys. They didn't have the edge to them. Christian Wilkins gave them that edge. He's a smart dude. You know, he won the academic Heisman there at Clemson. You remember he did the split during the national championship. Yeah. So you know the dude is athletic and very pliable. But he's a guy who brings a lot of heart and soul. And one of the things about Christian Wilkins that everybody with the Dolphins will tell you is that his routines are legendary. Like, he has stuff that he does Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and he sticks to that routine religiously. And everybody says, at Wednesday at 6 o'clock, I know where I can find Christian Wilkins. That's the kind of guy he is. So a hard worker, very emotional guy, but a fiery guy and a guy who can back up the talk. He's a good get for you guys and a really big loss for the Dolphins.
Are you surprised that the Dolphins weren't able to come to an agreement with him a year ago?
Well, the Dolphins kind of view this as, Christian Wilkins is not a, transformational player, that he's good, but he's not great. Mm-hmm. And so they don't see him as a guy that you have to game plan for. And they're right. They're right in that respect. But to me, Christian Wilkins' value goes beyond that with this team, with the Dolphins. He's all of that stuff that I just mentioned. I mean, there's really not that big of an edge with that defense anymore without Christian Wilkins there. He's a run stuffer. He had I think it was 89 tackles 2 years ago, and then he had the career high 9 sacks last year. So he's a guy who performs at a high level, and he does a lot of things. No, he's not Aaron Donald, but he's a force to be reckoned with, and he's going to leave a big hole for the Dolphins, and he's going to be a big addition for the Raiders. I mean, him and Max Crosby. I mean, look out. Look out.
That's exactly where I was going to go, and that's what I threw the question out there today to Raider Nation. How much better do they think Max Crosby will be in 2024? You mentioned you don't have to game plan for Christian Wilkins, but how much is the team's going to have to game plan for Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby?
Yeah, now that's going to be a handful right there. That's going to create a whole lot of problems because Christian Wilkins is a guy who, look, on his own, he's not a multiple-time Pro Bowl or anything like that. He's a guy who does that grunt work. He takes those double teams, and he's still going to break through. And he's just learning now how to apply pressure from the inside and run up those sack totals. That's not something he had done previous to this season. So that's something that he's just learning. But, yeah, Wilkins is a guy who, you put him out there, and you're going to notice him. Again, he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not Aaron Donald or somebody like that, but you have to account for that guy. He is going to be a factor on the field.
Chris Perkins from Sun Sentinels, our guest here on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness, talking all things Christian Wilkins. You mentioned that he finally got his, sacks up with having 9 last season from Miami. How did you see his game evolve to the point where he was able to do that and really get those sack numbers up?
Wilkins is a guy who really knows how to use what he's got, his quickness, his speed. He's a guy who, he's got a relentless motor. You'll see Christian Wilkins making tackles 5-6 yards down the field beyond the line of scrimmage because he never gives up. You talk about the energy and the spirit of him. You could see after almost every Dolphins touchdown, the first guy off the bench running to the end zone, what's Christian Wilkins? Because that's just the type of energy that this guy has. So that's one thing about Wilkins is that you're going to notice him out there again, penetrating the line of scrimmage, sideline to sideline. He's going to attract some attention. He's going to make some plays, and he's going to make it easier for Max Crosby to make plays. So you're gonna really like what you have in Christian Wilkins, and you're gonna like his physical tools also.
You mentioned, C. Perk, his leadership skills, and Antonio Pierce is a player's coach. I say that in air quotes because he's just one of those guys that wants to, he wants it done correctly, but he knows how to talk to players and how not to talk to them, and he just understands it. How much do you think that Antonio Pierce and Christian Wilkins marriage will work on the Raiders defense?
It's going to work very well. Brian Flores loved Christian Wilkins. He had him, maybe Christian's first 3 years, I guess, first 2 years, but he absolutely, they got along great. And because Wilkins is a football player. And I think that's going to appeal to Pierce. I'll say this about Pierce and about the Raiders, and I tweeted this out recently, and I meant to tweet it out after the Raiders Dolphins game, 20-13. Raiders made a very good showing, but after that game, just talking to players in the locker room during the week, probably 4 or 5 players remarked to me how they were impressed at how well the Raiders played together as a unit. This was Dolphins players from both sides of the ball. Christian Wilkins was not one of those players who said that to me. But, I think that was probably something that was talked about among Dolphins players for so many of them to say that, and perhaps that was a factor in Christian Wilkins going to the Raiders. But it just kind of struck me that you don't have that these guys were just like, the Raiders, they really played well as a unit. So I take that as something, as a sign of respect the Dolphins were giving for Antonio Pierce and his leadership, and maybe Christian Wilkins was in on that thought also.
Yeah, very well could be. That's a great nugget right there, dropped from Chris Perkins, Sun Sentinel, with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. Unnecessary roughness. As far as Christian Wilkins and his skill set, obviously he had the really good season getting to the quarterback. How do you think he continues to grow as a player, as he's only 28?
Yeah, well, again, he's added the pass rush to his game, and that's a valuable addition from the inside, and you see all these guys nowadays getting the pressure from the inside. That's a bonus. That's not kind of a requirement in today's NFL. That's a bonus. So that's probably the biggest way that his game has improved. But look, he's always going to give you that energy. He plays special teams. Here's another thing that Wilkins does not miss plays. If you look at the miss games or snaps, you look at the last couple of years, he's way up there in snaps played by interior defensive linemen. So, again, not only do you see the quickness, you see the athleticism, you see the speed, you see the relentless motor, but Christian Wilkins is always out there. This guy does not miss snaps. He'll play 3 downs for you. He does not miss games. He's very durable. Again, the relentless, religious work habits and just commitment to being better. That's what I really liked about Christian Wilkins. And, and I'm gushing over the guy, and you're going, but so why didn't the Dolphins keep him? They just don't think that he's enough of a factor at that price. That's really what it boiled down to. Look, I would have kept Christian on the franchise tag, $22 million.
Yeah. And
because if I'm the Dolphins, I've probably got one more run when this Super Bowl window is open at these salaries that next year the Dolphins have to deal with Jalen Phillips, Jalen Waddle, and Javon Holland all coming up for contract extensions. They're going to lose more talent. I'd have kept Christian Wilkins at $22 million, franchise tagged him, and see what happens, see if you can make one more push. I don't agree, for the record, I don't agree with the decision to let Christian Wilkins go for the Dolphins.
Well, I'll tell you what, Raider Nation is happy about it. I know the Dolphins might not be happy, but Raider Nation is happy to see the addition of Christian Wilkins. They'll be the best D tackle that they've had, in my opinion, since Darrell Russell, and that was many, many, many moons ago. And rest in peace to Darrell Russell. Well, C. Perk, let me close out with this. We hear the sound bites from Christian Wilkins, and we know who Max Crosby is. He's a guy that likes to agitate and irritate and, obviously a hell of a player, but he likes to get under folks' skin. And everything I'm hearing from Christian Wilkins, he likes to do the same thing. What can you tell us about the way that he tries to agitate and irritate opposing teams?
Oh, my goodness. Now, this dude will agitate and irritate. You can ask Josh Allen about that. If somebody is talking crap for the Dolphins, whether it's in training camp or during a game, it's going to be Christian Wilkins. Now, but again, the man can back it up.
Right.
He's the guy who gave the Dolphins defense their edge. Nobody else on that defense does that. Xavier Howard didn't do it. Jalen Ramsey didn't do it. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, none of them had that edge, and none of them could back it up. That's another big loss. But, yeah, Christian is going to yap. You are definitely going to notice Christian out there yapping.
So I thought that was a really good conversation. I hope that gives a little bit deeper of a dive into who he is, who Christian Wilkins is, and what the Raiders are getting with him. And can you imagine, and this is something I talked about on my radio show on Tuesday, can you imagine how much better Max Crosby is going to be with Christian Wilkins next to him? And, it's so funny. So many people on my radio show pointed out, well, yeah, Tyree Wilson's going to be that much better. Malcolm Kuntz is going to be that much better. And they're not wrong. The reason I brought up Max Crosby is because he's been thriving basically by himself since he's been in the NFL. I mean, he had Unique Ngakoue a couple seasons ago, and that really helped him get where he needed to go. But they never really had that interior presence. With that presence of Christian Wilkins, that's going to make Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson and Malcolm Kuntz that job that much easier. But, man, Max Crosby is a guy that's already been thriving. You know what kind of motor he has. And now if he has a little bit of help, I just think he's going to be that much better. I said on my radio show, I think he's going to be 5 more sacks better than what he was in 2023. And he was at 14.5 sacks. I was actually shortchanging him, giving him 13.5. He was at 14.5 sacks in 2023. So I think he's pushing 19 or 20 sacks in 2024 because of the addition of Christian Wilkins. That's just me. What says you? Your calls and texts are coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for everything. Sports, music, comedy, theater, whatever the case may be, they've got you. Great last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And they've got everything. They've got seats. You got views from your seats so you can actually see it before you buy. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front. You know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and it only takes a couple seconds and a couple taps to buy your tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find all the last-minute seats. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Logan in PA. He's calling to talk about the agreement of a free agent deal with Gardner Minshew, what he thinks about it, and what he thinks it means moving forward. Here he is, Logan in PA.
Hey, Q, this is Logan from PA. I'm calling out Gardner Minshew, as I'm sure everybody else on the podcast is. I did tweet at you. I think that a lot of people are probably going to hate on this move. But I don't think it's a bad move at all. I don't think it's that much money for a bridge quarterback. I really don't. I really think it's a smart move. So what this leads me to believe is they tried to trade for Fields because there were some rumors about that. And I think the Bears just wanted too much money. The Raiders just didn't want to give up a second-round pick. So they're like, okay. So then they tried to move up for Jaden Daniels. And they've been making calls, and we know that they've been making calls. And just the top teams in the 1, 2, 3 spot just are unwilling to trade out of it, or what they want is just too much. So I feel like the Raiders can't go up to 1, 2, or 3. So we can't get Jaden Daniels. So we know that they've been calling about picks 5 through 7, so 5, 6, and 7, which is, I think, J.J. McCarthy territory. And I think that a lot of people around the NFL have said that J.J. can't start year 1, right? Like, I think the anticipation is that he should sit for a year, similar to a Mahomes, right? So I think that this makes a lot of sense if the Raiders are trying to move up into that range to draft McCarthy, why they would be paying Minshew so much money. Because I think the conversation would be, hey, our plan is to try to move up and draft a quarterback, and we want to sit that quarterback for a year. We want you to be the starter for year one, and we want you to be the backup for year two. What is the cost for you to do that? And I think 25 over 2 years sounds pretty accurate for something like that. So I think that that's probably the plan. I know that a lot of Raider Nation doesn't want JJ, and personally, I'm with you, Q. I'd rather have Penix at 13 than JJ at 5 through 7, but it does certainly seem like maybe the Raiders' plan is JJ at 5 through 7, and then let him sit for a year, let Minshew start, and then JJ's the quarterback after that. What do you think about that? Because that's what everything is looking like to me, personally. And if that's the case, then, I think Minshew is an upgrade from Aiden, and I think Minshew's a pretty good quarterback. He's not the best, but, realistically, is Baker Mayfield all that much better than Gardner Minshew? And look at how much money he got. It's kind of the same kind of quarterback to me. So I'm cool with it. I think that Minshew's a pretty cool guy. I think he's going to fit right in with the locker room. So tell me what you think. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And I don't mind the $15 million guaranteed. Minshew is fine in my opinion. I know a lot of folks hate it. I think the Raiders will do everything in their power to get up to 2 or 3. Not saying that they're going to be able to. They got to have a partner, but I don't think that there's no saying that they can't right now. I'm not sure who their next quarterback would be if they don't get Daniels. It could be J.J. McCarthy. Maybe that's a 5 to 7 range. Could be Michael Penix. Maybe that's a 5 to 7 range. Maybe that's a 10 to 13 range. I don't know. Maybe they get an offensive tackle at 13. They can do a lot of different things. Maybe they could trade back into the end of round 1 and get Michael Penix if he's still available. I feel like the Raiders have so many options. If they don't get all the way up to the top to go get their quarterback that I think that they covet more than anything, they have options. Offensive tackle. They can still address the defensive tackle, Byron Murphy. They can go with the best cornerback, like a Terrion Arnold. They can go there. They could trade back in the back of the first round and go get a quarterback if he's still available. There's so many options that they have. I wish that I could be a fly on the wall when they have those conversations of what the strategy is between Telesco, AP, and the rest of the front office. But time will tell. We'll know sooner rather than later. It's midway through March already. We're talking about the end of April, and we'll know exactly what's going on with the draft and the Raiders. Thanks so much, Logan, for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, I got a text from Mike King from Pico Rivera, Cali. He says, what's up, Q? I don't think Justin Fields would be a bad trade. He's a mobile quarterback. We'll have the same coordinator, and the Raiders have insurance with Minshew backing him up. I think the Bears will not trade their first-round pick because I think they want to draft a quarterback. That's from Mike King from Pico Rivera, Cali, and you could be right. And I'll say this. If you want to trade for Justin Fields, I think right now his stock continues to go down and down and down. His market's not very good. I think any team that wants him right now should tell the Bears, yeah, here's a 6th-round pick. Take it or leave it and see what they say. Call their bluff. They can hold on to him all they want. I don't think anyone expects Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback for the Bears in 2024, so call their bluff. I'll give him a late-round pick, sure, right? And maybe let him go in there and compete. I just don't know. If you look at a quarterback room with Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Justin Fields, there's nobody that you feel confident saying that's the quarterback of the future. There's no doubt about it. That's my only problem with that scenario that you got there. Justin Fields might very well end up being a backup for all we know. Just like Mac Jones is a backup now in Jacksonville. Just like we've seen other quarterbacks like Jameis Winston going from being a first-round pick to a backup. Marcus Mariota, first-round pick, backup. Josh Rosen, first-round pick, backup, out of the league. You know what I mean? Carson Wentz, first-round pick, backup. There's all kind of scenarios that can happen, and I don't want to see that. Sam Darnold, first-round pick, backup. Now he's in Minnesota. Who knows what he's going to be, but that could very well end up being what happens with Justin Fields. And so I look at that room, and if that's what the makeup of it was, Fields, Minshew, and Aiden O'Connell, I don't have 100% confidence that they have a great quarterback or their quarterback that they feel like is going to lead them where they need to go in the future for years to come. I just don't see that. And I like Aiden O'Connell before someone says I'm hating on him. I'm not. I just think that it's okay to want better. It's like having, a 2020 Escalade. I like it, but I'd like better. Right? Simple as that. Not hating on anything, just would like a little bit better. Thanks so much for that text, my man. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Sacktown Mark. He's calling to talk about Gardner Minshew and what he thinks he'll bring to the table for the Raiders, and also brings up a couple potential rookie quarterbacks as well. Here he is, Sacktown Mark.
Hey, Q. This is Sacktown Mark. I just wanted to echo some of the things that you said about Gardner Minshew on Tuesday's podcast. First, I just think that with Gardner Minshew being on the team, it sets the bar higher than what we had last year in terms of quarterback play, right? And you said it, when it comes to his mobility, now, yeah, he's not going to rush for over 1,000 yards or anything like that, but he has the ability to move out of the pocket, extend the play if he has to, and if need be. So right there, just in of itself, it raises the bar of quarterback play and what to expect out of the quarterback room. Now, I just want to push it a little further. Imagine if we draft Michael Penix, or imagine if we draft J.J. McCarthy. We don't get James Daniels. And that rookie, whichever rookie we draft, beats out Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to start. What does that say? Right? That says that this kid's ready. He's ready to go. If he could be better than what Gardner Minshew was last year, because in my humble opinion, I think Gardner Minshew was better than Aiden O'Connell, albeit he was more experienced, right? Aiden was a rookie last year. So it's kind of hard to compare the two, but if you beat out Gardner Minshew in camp, that means you're ready to go. That means I would be, over the moon, if he beats them. So, I just think that would mean that we would have a strong case for making the playoffs, or at least competing to get in, kind of like the Colts were last year. So, that's all I had to talk about. Q, thank you for all that you do, and go Raiders.
Thank you for the call. And yeah, I think he's a very steady pro, right? It's nothing to get excited about. I'm not fired up about Gardner Minshew, right? I don't think anyone is, but I mean, he's a guy that when he's asked to step up when need be, just like he was a season ago when Anthony Richardson went down for the Colts, he did it, and he wasn't worried about it. Also, I found out on Tuesday, I talked to Jake Arthur, who is the host of Locked On Colts. He was on my radio show as well. Not only him, but Chris Perkins, who you heard from in segment number 2. Asked him all things Minshew, and he also let me know he's a guy very willing to teach and mentor and coach up a rookie. He has no problem. He did that with Anthony Richardson, knowing Anthony Richardson was going to be the starting quarterback. He also went into the game with no hesitation to fill that void, knowing that when Richardson comes back, he's not going to be the starter anymore. So he is very selfless, and I think that that's important. It really is. Right? He doesn't mind helping out and teaching the young guy the ropes. Also, he's a guy that the Colts look at as a pretty big loss. The only thing is they weren't going to pay him the money that the Raiders gave him to go to join the forces with the Raiders. So the Colts were looking to bring him back, and they were actually pretty disappointed that they weren't able to do that. Now they're actually looking at maybe a Justin Fields to go be a backup to Anthony Richardson. And if not him, then they don't know who. They don't know who's going to be the backup because they were expecting for Gardner Minshew to be that guy. So Sacktown Mark, thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from the judge. He says, "Hey, Q, the judge here. I know everyone's saying Gardner Minshew is going to come in and be a backup or a bridge quarterback, but my question is, can Minshew be this generation's Rich Gannon? He has a lot of really good tape out there, and he's never had a ton of talent around him or really been given the opportunity to be the guy. He's always just been a placeholder like Gannon was for his first 10 years. Just a thought. Maybe Uncle Rico really can throw it out over the mountain. Keep up the great work, Q." That's from the judge. And thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And I mean, I think he's a bridge guy at best. I think his contract tells you that, right? 2 years, $15 million fully guaranteed, and $7.5 million a year. I don't think that that's starter money, long-term starter money. I think that that's Band-Aid money. That's, bridge guy. That's in case of emergency break guy. If, Aiden O'Connell doesn't work out or whatever rookie they bring in doesn't work out, then he takes over and he holds it down. He's got things to like about him. He's got some mobility to him. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's also a guy that backed up Jalen Hurts. He backed up Trevor Lawrence. He backed up Anthony Richardson. All those guys, I believe, have more athleticism than him, but he was still able to run the same offense. A lot of the zone read, a lot of the RPO stuff, he did that in Indianapolis last year, which is the Shane Steichen system. So that could be something to like, but I don't like to, look for the next Rich Gannon. Now, if he just organically appears and we start to see something, then maybe. But, Rich Gannon was a special dude. And to be honest, I thought he was a special dude when he was in Kansas City. Never knew and understood why the Chiefs never gave him the opportunity to be the long-term solution. I was really happy when the Raiders got him. I just don't know if Gardner Minshew is that guy. If he is, I have no problem coming out here and saying, you know what, the Raiders found a diamond in the rough and nobody knew about it, including him. But here he is. So, Judge, thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Travis in San Diego. He's calling to talk about GM Tom Telesco, the job he's done so far, and what he thinks the Raiders are now set up for. Here he is, Travis in San Diego.
Hey, Q. This is Travis from San Diego. I love the fact that I've been calling in a lot. I love the show, and I just like giving my input. I just wanted to talk about Tom Telesco and a great job he's doing. And I really have a feeling that we are set up for success in regards to probably getting Justin Fields, but maybe during the draft time. I think Minshew's insurance for us if we can't get the guy we want in the draft. And if need be, then we can get Justin Fields, hopefully. So I think we're in prime position to get either Justin Fields or draft our guy at quarterback. So, yeah, I just want to say, man, Telesco's killing it right now. And we got a lot to look forward to for sure. So I just want your thoughts and opinion on us possibly, waiting to get Fields around draft time if nobody picks him up, or getting the guy you want in the draft. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, my man. And, yeah, I like what Telesco's done. It hasn't been a lot. Getting Wilkins was a big deal, right? That was a priority. He did it. I hate losing Jacobs, but I get it. I'm intrigued by, what the plan is, what they're going to do on the offensive line. As I mentioned on Tuesday's show, I think that has got to be a priority, whether they get that in the draft, they get that in free agency, or a combination of the both. There's still a lot of questions that we need to see answered, but so far I think so good with Tom Telesco. What's the plan at quarterback? I don't think Fields is part of that equation, but you never know how things could work out. You could be spot on. I just don't see it. Maybe Telesco throws a 6th or 7th round pick at the Bears and says, here you go. You got it. Do you want him or not? And see what they have. And like I said, call their bluff and see what they do. But thanks, Travis, for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Matt in Brentwood. Say, what's up, Q? Matt from Brentwood. I strongly feel like we can't get to the number 2 spot and grab Daniels. Could it be that we move up to 7 and 9 to grab Penix? If we truly need that quarterback, which I think we do we wait and take the chance that he drops to the second round and doesn't get picked up by another team? Strong possibility that he won't be there when we pick in the 2nd or even the 13th pick. With the Raiders' luck, the Broncos would take him. Anyways, keep it up, Q. Appreciate you and what you do for the nation. That's Matt in Brentwood. And I mean, that's, I guess, the $1 million question, right? I mean, from everyone that I've talked about, Penix is not a top 10 guy, but that's just everyone I've talked about. That doesn't mean that that's what the NFL feels like. That's just people that are evaluators. That's people that, just do this for a living. They're the draft analysts. They're different guys that, cover the teams. And, I mean, we'll see. I like Penix. I think that he would be there at 13 if the Raiders stuck there at 13. But there's going to be some teams that need quarterbacks. I mean, you look at the top 3, right? Chicago, Washington, New England. We can make an argument that all 3 of those need a quarterback. We could look at the Giants at 5 and say that they need a quarterback. We could look at who's at 6. Oh, no, the 5 is Chargers. The 6 is Giants. Giants at 6 need a quarterback. Arizona was at 4. Atlanta was at 8, but they got Kirk Cousins, so they don't need a quarterback. Minnesota obviously needs a quarterback. They're sitting there at, 11? The Broncos are at 12. I mean, there's, 5 numbers or 5 teams that I rattled off already. So there's so many different scenarios that play into it. I don't know how it's going to happen. I do think, though, that the Raiders, and this might just be me being foolish, I think the Raiders are going to do everything they can to try to get to that number 2 spot. Now, again, if it's possible, then they'll go for it. If it's not, then they won't. They'll have to pivot to whatever plan B is. I don't know what plan A is, right? I have no idea, but we'll see sooner rather than later. I think that, something's got to give pretty soon, and it could start today as the new league year opens up. We might start hearing about some trades with draft picks coming up at the end of April. But, Matt, thanks so much for that. We do appreciate you, and that's all I got time for on today's show. I got a call from Morning Merch Raider. We'll get that tomorrow. Got a text from the 970, a quick one. We'll get that on tomorrow's show as well, plus more feedback. Plus, it's the new league year. It is the 2024 NFL season. It is open now, well, at least at 1 p.m., so depending on what time you listen to this, 1 p.m. Pacific time, it'll be the new league year, and everything will be official. There'll be no more negotiation period. There'll be no more this, that, and the other. It'll all be official. Transactions are actually happening And, well, it's already the new league year for the NFL. So there you go. They always stay in the news. It's always busy, and we love it here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.